Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. Super excited. I think I've waited a year for today's podcast. So let me get my work out of the way first. The spiritual protection class with Thomas Durant is up. It is on my website, karenrontowski.com, rontowski.com, or paranormalkaren.com. They all go to the same place. We have three different prices for two reasons. The class goes to supporting and funding my next comedy special that Tommy is going to produce and edit. But we wanted everyone to have this information. So you have the full price, half price, or a little teeny tiny price. And if you really don't have any money, just send me an email because we want you to have this information. And if you watch it and you're like, hey, that was worth $1 million, well, then my Venmo and PayPal is there. Also join the Patreon. And now today, Ryan Mabee is here with me today. And I have to tell you, Ryan, before I even start, you have the best, and I think of all I've ever seen, the best, the most helpful YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I know they're all related, but I cannot tell people enough. I think I've watched everything you put up and learned so many new things. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for saying all those wonderful things. That means that I'm doing a good job, and I need to hear that once in a while.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. And I have so many questions for you. And I'm just going to begin with, how did this all start for you? Were you from a psychic family? Did you just develop it? Were you told it was demonic when you were a kid? Where did it all start?
You know, I feel like I was always kind of a spooky kid. In hindsight, I was really into Halloween and ghosts and witches and all that. And I think a lot of kids are, of course, but then it was around 30 years old. So about 14 years ago, I developed anxiety and I went to therapy. The therapist started teaching me how to meditate. And with the meditation, not only did it make me feel a lot better, strange things started happening. I started hearing things and seeing things. And very long story short, I figured out I had psychic abilities that had been dormant. And then a lot of my youth suddenly made sense. You know, if we went someplace as friends, if there was a ghost, I was going to see it. Or something spooky was going to happen, it was going to happen to me. And my friends just were never surprised when it happened. It happened so much. But that basically, in a nutshell, is what happened. Meditation opened my chakras. It removed blockages from my systems. And suddenly I was a psychic medium. And then I started taking classes and investigating and going down all the channels we all go, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And here I am. Now I've been teaching people for 7 years.
And I really have to say, you do a just your little tips. There was just the other day I watched one, or it was actually a while ago. I watched one, and it was just it was about like because I'm a tarot fanatic. I have always read 100 tarot books. I study the cards. That's my gig right now. Oops, sorry everyone, you didn't get a text. I forgot to quiet my phone. My text, not yours. And so I know tarot. And the other thing is I can usually sit down 3 minutes before a reading or jump up and do a reading really fast without a lot of prep. And other people always had a lot of meditation and stuff for it. And you had a tape up, how old am I? You had a video up that was explaining it's more about being present than hours of meditation.
Absolutely. I think people, they think whatever it is, more must be better. And that's really not the case. I mean, we're each unique. I have some friends that are psychic mediums that they really take, 15, 20 minutes to prep, and that's fine for them. But I tell people you don't need to do the hokey pokey to connect. And if you think you need it, then that becomes a problem. We are divine. We're totally connected all the time. So really it's about you just being able to get very centered and present, and you can get right into it. You don't need, people come to me and bless their hearts, they've been taught they need to sit down and open chakras and call in this and do that. Man, I'm tired. By the time we even get to the reading, you must be tired as hell. So it's like you don't need to do it. I mean you should protect and you should sort of get yourself centered, but with practice you can get to a place where you can do that quite quickly, and that's what I push for.
Yes, and if that's your process to take 15 minutes, good for you. Good for you.
Sure. Yep. Everyone should do what they feel comfortable doing and what they think benefits them.
Plus, after a while, like especially since when I read in the same place all the time, I feel like there's like my body alarm goes off, or oh, we're here, we're doing this now. But
yes, your guides definitely, they know they know before you've even finished the thought that you're going to give a reading. They're already like, okay, let's go, and people say, well, I need to call in my guides. And I'm like, honey, they're already there. They're already there. But what you know when you know it. So I understand. I thought all the same stuff, that all my clients that come to me, all their fears and concerns and questions, I had all the same ones. So I can completely relate. But I try to make it easier now for people because it can be very overwhelming and complicated.
Now, did you take a bunch of classes? Did you have one teacher? Did you just read a million books? How did you? Because I actually really love this story that you started when you were 30.
Yeah. So, well, a little bit of everything. I took the route that I think most people do, where they're just on, Google scrambling, trying to find all kind of information, and it's confusing and overwhelming, and one says one thing and another site says something totally different, and it gets frustrating. So I went that route. I tried to do things myself, and I just kept hitting a roadblock, if I could talk. Finally, I found in my Google search, I found a woman in England that was teaching. And there was, I watched her for about a year because I was too nervous to actually bite the bullet and pay someone. Finally, I did. And then with assistance, that's where I started making headway. But of course, I had bought a ton of books before that. We all do the same thing. When people come to me, it's I've done this, and this, and I did it all too. But finding a teacher that could work with me one-on-one was the thing that made the biggest difference. And also, I spent 3 years every night after dinner practicing by myself.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah. That's the thing that made the biggest difference. And that is the thing I have a hard time getting people to do. Mm-hmm. They want to be taught something and then have it work. And that's not usually how it works. I mean, you definitely can see progress, but it's like, this requires practice,
So much so. And I also feel like, so my life sort of got disrupted, and I'm living in upstate New York now. So it's not exactly where I want to be, but it is the greatest mirror for also getting through my shit, I'm always texting my friend Amy, I found another shadow side I have to fix. Damn it. But it is about knowing yourself too.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I tell people within the process of practicing, you will find out so much about yourself that needs worked on and healed. And I mean, it can be really fascinating, actually, to find out who you are. And these gifts are just part of it, so I agree with you. I mean, I find a shadow side of myself, I think, every week.
Right. I'm sick of being an asshole. That's
well, because I'm sure for you too, it becomes interesting, it's less frustrating as time goes on, and it's more like, okay, you have more awareness and you realize things will pass. And
And you learn to apologize. And as a comedian, usually that's where stuff really comes from. Good stuff comes from.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I love what you do. Like laughter to me is the most healing. You have to laugh, and I try to do that with my clients. There's times to be serious, but I try to get them laughing so they don't take this all so serious. And it's like not taking life so serious,
Yeah. You sound a lot like like when I was learning tarot. I have a to-do list, and there's it's getting way too long now, but the priorities are comedy, Patreon, business, and learning psychic stuff. So tarot, I really put in the time, and I think you're right. I think people really, and everything, like I have a tarot class, and it's a class. It's an 8-hour class. We're not, you know what I mean? I think some people would rather have a 3-hour class, and I'm like, no, you get in what you get out what you put in. When you were practicing, were you what was that practice like? Were you reading for people? Were you just reading in general? How did that go?
Do you mean when I was practicing on my own?
Yes.
So what I did is that whatever my teacher would teach me, or even things that I sort of stumbled across online, I would only spend about 20 or 30 minutes. I would sit down and go, okay, I'm going to practice this myself. And I started to get used to how things came across for me. And a lot of it was just communicating with my angels and spirit guides. And as I learned to validate and trust what I was receiving, my spirit guides, they were able to start teaching me things they wanted me to practice and work on. My guides for me, they never like me to overdo it. And I have a tendency to do it. Okay. So after a little while, they would get quiet. So I couldn't practice for hours on end. They would sort of get quiet and go, no, now go be a human. And so I stress that with my students also, that you don't have to do a ton of work to be good at this. You just have to have consistent work, and you also don't want to tap yourself out by being, talking to angels and spirit guides is very taxing on your energy. And we all have different limits for that, but it's more consistent. I tell people it's like going to the gym. You're not going to get big muscles if you go once a month. But if you could do it 3 or 4 times a week, you'll really start making progress. So that's what I did.
Boy, I really think you were meant to be a teacher. What did you do before this?
Well, my husband and I, and we still have this, we own a clothing store, 2 clothing stores actually. Oh. And it's very different than the psychic side, of my business, of my side business. But that's what I did. I started working with him when I was 23. So we've been doing it a long time. And that's why my business is seasonal. My clothing store is seasonal. And then I spend the other half of the year mentoring people.
Oh, that's amazing. What I know this is kind of a dumb question, but when your clothing store is seasonal, what does that mean? Is it winter clothes, or you just take a break?
We're in a tourist area, and a lot of people take their spring and summer vacations where we go or where we live. And in the winter, it just becomes a ghost town. So it's sort of like, Atlantic City sort of closes down, or Colorado closing down the ski slopes. It's the same sort of thing. So in the winter, there's just no business. So we close up everything. And I always tell my husband, that's why I married him. I'm like, 6 months of work. Do you want to get married?
It's so funny. You were reading my mind, because I used to play Atlantic City all the time, and we stayed right on the boardwalk. In winters, it was just closed all the time. That is fabulous.
Yeah, it is. It's. I'm so used to it at this point, and it's actually worked out because I want to be able to help and support him in his business, and I'm able then to spend the 6 months dedicated to mine. So my life really has the universe lined something up perfectly for me. It's sort of amazing.
Well, you know what though, too, and this is something that so I'm always like, well, you're not married or you have 3 careers and I work too much, and burnout is a real thing. And then on the other side of burnout is the fear, I'm going to lose touch. I'm not going to be as good. You know what I mean? Like your brain can always do that to you, right?
Absolutely. And, I'm not saying that those fears don't happen to me. They definitely crossed my mind. That I realized over that 6 months when I'm on a sabbatical that I could totally lose people. But I've said to the universe, if you want me to do this, please bring me people that are willing to stay with me through this process. And I'll be damned, they really have. And I really don't lose that many people. And when I do, I thank the universe. I'm like, thank you. That worked out great. You slid them right out of my way.
Wow. I love that. I actually am going to ask you to say it again. You say to the universe, if you want me to do this.
Yes. If you want me to do this, please line it up so I'm getting the right people that will stay with me and that will support me needing to take a break. And I probably am not saying it as good as I did the first time.
It's all right. I get it. I think it's fantastic. Now, when you say, because I feel like I have a pretty good connection with my guides. I feel like that. In fact, it's funny because the other night I went somewhere that was kind of it was different for me. And I felt like I walked in and I felt like there was an army around me. I was like, where am I? That all there's was like everybody was just making themselves known in this space. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. And nothing bad happened. It wasn't a bad thing. But when you, are you communicating with your guides all the time, or you sit down and other than that, you're just living life? How does that go?
So I don't communicate with them all the time. I would say that I do periodically through the day, and that sort of ebbs and flows depending on what's going on. I teach my clients the same thing, that to always be tuned in, to always sort of have your antenna up is very draining, and it really does a number on your auric walls. So I teach people the same thing I do, is that it's okay to tune in kind of quickly to talk to your guides here and there, and then just return to being a regular person. You don't need to know everything all the time. You wouldn't even want to. And then if you want detailed information, that's when you sit down and you have coffee with your spirit guides and go, okay, I need some details. I really want to talk. You spend however long doing that, and then you close it down and you go back to being the human self. A lot of people that come to me, they're sort of tuning in all the time, and it's not very clear. It's sort of haphazard, and they find themselves very drained. So I follow what I teach people is to not do that all the time. Of course, as you know, Karen, we're always connected. I mean, we're clairsentient beings, and just like when you walked in a room, you're picking up on energy and things. So of course that happens, but usually I wait until an appropriate time to ask my guides what was going on. So sort of like with what happened to you, I would have kind of ignored it. And then when I went home, I would have sat down and said, hey guys, what was that about? What was going on? And then with focused energy, they would have told me.
I love this. I already cannot believe how fast this podcast is going, because I still have a bazillion questions. So I'm going to take a break and we will be right back.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Understanding's Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
Okay, so I, at some point, my year has been a fluster, but I really am going to get you have sessions where you work one-on-one. And I don't care if I have to wait a half year if I miss the whatever, because I love what you do. And I looked at your class and I feel like, because this is a good question for a lot of my podcast listeners. Because they're kind of everybody's a little bit in the middle. Like, I don't know, a lot of them might be like if I was to come to you, my goal is to become a medium. And everybody I go to goes, oh, you're not even supposed to be a tarot reader. You're supposed to be a medium. It's all there. And I just can't seem to jump over that wall. And when I look at classes online, I'm kind of like, oh, because I can lose interest fast and then never finish the class. It's like, am I a beginner, or do I go to an advanced class, or do I do a one-on-one? Do you feel most people are kind of like that in the middle?
Yeah, I would say that I get a mix of things. I get some people that come to me that I've even had people that do this for a living, that are struggling in different ways. I have people that have taken a lot of classes. They're very knowledgeable, but they still feel like something isn't quite right. And then I have people that come to me that they know they're psychic, they've had strange phenomena, but they don't even know where to start. So really, I get everyone. And I would say you're not a beginner. I would say that maybe some of what you're doing just needs more focus. You're used to doing it such a certain way that it would be fun for you to play around with some other stuff. And, I'm not trying to read you, sorry.
No, I'm open. I'm good.
But, I will say with what I do with people is that a mediumship is a little advanced. So I take people from the beginning and, I sort of figure out where they're at, and then we start at a certain place and work up to mediumship. And I make sure that they are able to easily receive from their angels and spirit guides before they go on to mediumship. So I would say that if you can easily communicate with your guides and all your clairs seem to be working fine, you'd have no problem going right on to mediumship with someone.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. And that's even to know just to be tuned in the right way, to like start with the tune. And there's several. So I know mediums that will just go with who's in the room. Is it? And then I know when someone, this is what I would love to be able to do, is someone comes in with a picture. This is so-and-so. Can you communicate with this person? But some mediums say that's not really how it's done. Is that possible to do that?
Absolutely. And this is not to go against some of what's said, but when it comes to mediumship, I notice there's a lot of mediums that have these hard and fast rules, and they're not really based in fact for me, and so I wish mediums would be a little more freer with how each of us works, and I know a lot of times they're just repeating what they were taught, it's not, I'm not trying to be judgy, but you know what I mean? It's like they're just repeating, this is how it is. And the thing is, with these topics, there's not really hard and fast rules, and you can be a little free with it. With the mediumship that I teach, I usually just say, who do you want to talk to? Let's call them. Sort of like The Price is Right. Come on down. And you can totally do that. I've never had a deceased loved one that I called on not come forward.
Okay,
and
great.
They will have a skill set, though. They can't all communicate well. And that's the one thing I teach people is sometimes if you're talking to someone's deceased grandmother, it might go really, really well. You call on their uncle and it doesn't go so well, and you take it personally. And that's the problem with mediumship, is that it is affected by the deceased loved one. We're talking to angels and spirit guides. There's not that learning curve for them to communicate. But anyway, I digress. I like to just call on someone. There are mediums that teach evidential mediumship, and they'll figure out, okay, who is this? What side of the family are they on? Who wants to talk? And I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's amazing. I'm impatient. I just want to get to who you want to talk to. So we just call on them and they show up.
Yeah, I like that. And also, there's a lot of words that get cloudy, including channeling, because sometimes I know sometimes I'm channeling information because probably most of my readings now, I'm off the cards like 50%. Like the cards are a guideline, then another question comes in, then I'm off doing other stuff. You know what I mean? A different way.
Yeah.
But channeling can also, which I'm not for, bringing someone else in or bringing someone else into you. Like that's the biggest channel is having someone else come into your body. And I'm not crazy about that at all. I wouldn't do that myself. Maybe other people are braver, but do you differentiate between mediumship and channeling?
I do. I believe that channeling is when a higher evolved being merges their energy with yours and speaks through you. Having said that, I also teach people that, like the tarot you're doing and even creating artwork and music is also a form of channeling. The divine are working through you. But mediumship, I say, okay, I'm talking to the deceased loved one. With channeling, now I'm not a fan of people channeling deceased loved ones. Deceased loved ones don't have a very high vibration, and that's not knocking anyone's grandparents. They just don't. And so I always tell people if you're going to channel, if you're going to have a being merge their energy with yours, you want to go to the high of the high. So archangels, ascended masters, very high level spirit guides. And that's what I do, and that's what I feel comfortable and safe with. And I don't see many problems with that, but I do separate that. Now, some people that come to me, they'll say, well, I've been channeling. And I'll say, well, what do you mean channeling? And they just mean speaking to their spirit guides. So I ask them to sort of change the lingo so we're on the same page. But I know that it does depend on who you're talking to, what lingo they use. So working with me, I just say, okay, channeling is not just talking to your spirit guides.
Right. And that is I know some people say, because I'm pretty open to, I feel like I have a connection with Archangel Michael. So he's kind of my go-to. And also, I talk to Jesus all the time. But I feel like, other than that, I'm used to just saying, guides and spirits. And then somebody was like, you got to say your God consciousness guides, or it got very complicated. It seems like I kind of have to have it short and sweet myself.
Yes, and that's where the people that come to me, I get very frustrated for them because of the things they've been told. Like that you do not have to say the God consciousness. You know what I mean? Like you literally can say my homies in heaven if you want. Like like spirit knows what you mean. Like I'm all for protection, and you certainly don't want to say, hey, whoever wants to come talk to me, you wouldn't want to do that. But your guides are very understanding of what your words mean to you. And so it doesn't have to be what someone else uses. And that's, again, this sort of hard and fast rules about it has to be that. It's like, no. And I tell people, if a teacher is telling you something like that, ask your spirit guides, what would you have me call you? Or if I want to talk to you, what would you prefer? You'd be so surprised how open they are. They'll say, what do you want to call us? They won't say, Betty told you it had to be the God consciousness. Like they'll be like, oh, don't worry about that.
That's what I thought. And I tell people when they're like, I don't know how to communicate with my guides. I had a deal with my guide way early on. I was like, how about if you look like the Emperor card? And I feel like he was like, yep. And then I have other psychics go, oh, there's a guy here who looks like he's an Emperor, or the Hermit card. And I'm like, now we've all connected. Cause I think it doesn't have to be that. And it's funny because social media, not like, well, there are some classes I'm sure that are doing the same thing, but social media has just made this spewing of information that it is so easy for people to get misled.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I spend a lot of time with people undoing things. And it's like I said, it breaks my heart because it's very overwhelming and confusing, and it doesn't need to be. All of this is so much easier and simpler and more freer than a lot of the people in the spiritual community would have you believe. And I don't know if it's because of egos or fear or what it is, but the divine are so much more relaxed. And I have a lot of people when they're working with archangels, the archangels will make a joke, and some people have a very hard time with it because they're like, why would they laugh? Like, why would they be being funny? And I'm like, oh God, why wouldn't you?
Right.
They're, and it's just, our belief system and things we've been told. And I just tell people, take what resonates when you're learning from someone, but always check in with your guides. You should be able to talk to your guides and say, what do you think about this thing I was taught? What are your opinions on this? And they'll ease stuff up for you,
There are I know a ton of people. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but some people I know that do mediumship do not believe in demons or dark energies. And I find that it's a weird, this is maybe a sort of I don't know. I feel like that could in a way shield them, but I think, how could you believe in one but not the other? Does that make sense how I ask that?
Yep, absolutely. I don't understand either. From my life experience, that goes against everything I've dealt with. So I don't know if I'm just gonna sort of put my hands over my eyes and go la 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 la, you know what I mean? Like, or maybe they've never had any bad experiences and that's their reality and that's fine. But I tell people that everything in spirit is very much like here on earth in this dimension. There's assholes, there's great people, there's people that are somewhere in the middle, and in the spirit world, there's the same thing. There's light beings, there's assholes, there's all kinds of stuff. And it's not necessarily good and bad or evil and light or anything like that. It's just, it serves a purpose. And that's sort of a whole other topic, but it serves a purpose. And I get disappointed when I hear some students say, like, I had this horrible experience and my teacher said didn't happen. And it's like, well, if something's floating over top your bed, you're going to remember.
Something's happening. Yes.
And then the people can't find any help and they're scared. And sometimes they pull away from their spirituality. And I just think these teachers would be better saying, I don't know how to help you. So I'm going to send you to someone else because I'm not sure about this, instead of saying that doesn't exist. I mean, it's just not true,
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. That's something I've learned through this podcast, is that I know a lot of people. So if someone's having an issue, I can pretty much find 2 or 3 different avenues for them if I can't help them. That's been the kind of the fun thing about the podcast, is to kind of be the disbursement. But it's funny too, because I know we're kind of people were saying about this year that this year there's going to be a lot of kind of I hate to even say it this way, because I want to say there's supposed to be the astrology that the people that are phony spiritual or something or haven't been doing the work are going to be shown, like the fake spirituality is going to be revealed in certain people. But that always makes me feel bad, because I think it's like when people say, well, half the psychics out there are con artists. And I don't think they are. I think there's a lot of people that really, really, really want to be psychic and don't do the work. But that's not a con artist. That's somebody that's trying and doesn't know what to do, So I wonder, this big reveal of who's phony, I hope a lot of people don't get hurt in that time,
Yeah, and this is the first time I'm hearing about this, and the universe has a way of checking people, of course, as we know, but it's going to always be like anything. There's good doctors and not so good doctors. It doesn't mean that they're not doctors, and a lot of people with spirituality, I agree, they rush into a business when they really haven't done as much work as they need. And then they might come across as maybe not very good at it, but it doesn't mean that they're not receiving it all. And it doesn't mean that they're not psychic and they're not even going to get better. So I think we have to be careful of course, there's always going to be fake people, but that's in every community.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, if you are not good at this and you're trying to make money, people will figure you out just like they do anything else, and you won't get clients. That sort of has a way of working itself out, I think.
Yeah, I do too. And I think I always feel bad because, and I've said this before, I don't know Teal Swan. She puts out good information. That's all I know sometimes when I see her tapes. And they made a documentary that was a hit job. And the people that made the documentary were the worst. They lived with her and lied to her for 3 years. So on that, I'm just like, I don't even know who's who in that situation. You know what I mean? If I receive some good information from a video that she said something, great. I don't know what the rest of it is. So it makes me very nervous. And spiritual people have been attacked so much and called phony. I rarely get that anymore, but sometimes because I brought it into my comedy, I do. Have you had people do that to you?
I've been incredibly fortunate. The only place that I've ever dealt with it was on YouTube. YouTube is sort of the Wild West of social media, and you have horrible trolls. That's the only place. And, over time I got good at ignoring it. And then actually I just turned off my comments, and I thought, I'm giving information, take it or leave it. And I really think that's the problem with all social media now, is we've gotten where instead of just going, even like with Teal Swan, I don't resonate with this, I'm just going to click away.
Right.
People that improve and like showing you or exposing you. And it's like, just grab your clicky thing and click away from, you don't need to expose someone, because maybe for someone they're very helpful, but just because they're not for you doesn't mean that they're not for everyone.
Right.
So YouTube was the place I get people either trying to save my soul, which I'm like, please leave my soul alone. Please don't pray for me. I don't want your prayers. Or I get men saying that I'm being sexual because I touched my hair.
Oh my God.
You get crazy stuff. Or people say, she's wrong. I'm a high. One time I got someone saying she's wrong about everything she said. I'm a high priestess and I know this, and this. And I thought, well, okay. It's, you got to have a kind of thick skin, as I'm sure you've realized. You've got to let stuff roll off your back. Because there are people, they will say you're a fraud, and it's like, that's fine. I'm glad it used to hurt my feelings at first, and I felt like I had to prove myself. And now if you feel I'm a fraud, that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, it's funny because comedy is, comedy, you have to continually put up clips, and people really think comedians just don't have feelings. Like they just will unload on you. So I'm kind of, in that essence, I don't look. Every once in a while, something will come into my vision where I'm like, don't look. But I try not to look at the good or the bad. I try to, especially on TikTok. That's another one that's getting that way. But it's interesting because now with comedy, I'm bringing it like when I just do my tarot, then I'm sort of attracting who I'm attracting. But now I'm bringing it into comedy, and it's very interesting because I'm bringing it to a place. I'm bringing it in. It's not being brought to me. So it's kind of a fun, but it is the Wild West.
It definitely is. And I even, I'm all for doing clearings on your energy, but also your business. So if I start getting like a lot of weird comments, I realize that it's time to clear my TikTok or clear my YouTube channel. And you'd be amazed how a lot of those comments stop. And then later they come back again. But it's like, you have to have energetic self-care, but then also all these other things are energy, and they also need clearings and self-care. And if you're worried about it, you will sort of bring it in. You know what I mean? Like you'll get more of it. But the more you're yourself, if you notice, you get more of your people. So I always tell people, just be yourself. That way the universe can deliver you your people.
When you clear your business, what do you do? Do you have a little ritual? Do you say a little prayer? Do you light a business card on fire? What happens?
I do. I do. There are things that I say to my guides, sort of like some general things. However, sometimes I'll just really keep it simple and I'll say, hey, guides, whatever needs cleared. So this is sort of vibrating higher. Would you do that? It depends on my mood and sort of what I feel it needs. I can either get very detailed and ask for specific things or even ask my guides specific things. But sometimes I'll just give like a general, like, hey, would you please give this a clearing? And of course, by asking and your intent, that's what makes it happen.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, I got a whole, let's take a break. And I keep forgetting to say, I know it's in the show notes, it's right in front of you folks, but Rock the Divine is your website and everything. Yeah. That's everything. Rock the Divine with Ryan.
Yes.
All right, we'll be right back, folks.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and Prithvika is my collection of consciously created crystal and nature forged jewelry. Prithvika translates to of the earth in Hindi, which represents the natural earth-made materials I'm working with, along with my personal ancestry and grounded energy. Each piece is created through ceremony and science, and completed with being Reiki charged. I'm currently featuring copper mirror necklaces, which can be used for protection and mirror magic. My intention is for your new piece of jewelry to feel like an extension of self, to help bring your desires to fruition and to amplify the magic within you. My Instagram is @Prithvika, and my website is prithvika.com. That's PRTHVEEKA.com.
Okay, so, it's kind of interesting because I love how simple you make it. And there's a part of my brain that is also going, well, wait, she's not going to tell you to buy a special rock or something. You're just going to do that with your mind. And right? It's that easy.
Yeah.
And that I think is the part, and maybe this is what I pick up from you, that I feel like it's so, I talk a lot. I'm kind of in the middle of Carolyn Miss's mediumship, medical mediumship class, which is a combination of many things. So it I finally think I got to the meat of it. I think the beginning they put together a lot of stuff that was the same thing over and over. And now I think I'm in the meat of it. But she is constantly yelling about being yourself or getting rid of or being responsible for, really clearing yourself out and knowing yourself. That's what I think that really, because if you don't know yourself and you're like, hey, clean up my business, and you're still like angry or something, it doesn't work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I have people that they'll still be having whatever sort of problem. And I'm like, well, you haven't fixed the root of, the problem. It's sort of like, people getting like, watching scary movies and they start getting like weird hauntings. And then I'm like, well, you're still watching scary movies. You know what I mean? It's like, if the energy or the vibration around it is not the right thing, then you're going to bring in that thing and not actually what you want. You know what I mean? So absolutely, it's so important to not, like, sort of like not caring what everyone thinks. It's like, if you care about the people that you really wouldn't want around you, and then you're going to find all these people around you didn't want, it's like, well, you were worried about the wrong people, So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we think things have to be harder. So sort of like buying a crystal and stuff, it's like you can, but you don't have to. And people think, oh, it's got to be difficult for me to do these clearings and have this. And it's like, no, it can be as hard or as easy as you want it to be.
Right. If you like a ritual, have a ritual.
Yeah. And don't think you need it. I have some people that they think they have to do it. And I'm like, can you imagine going to a psychic fair and you sit down and the psychic's like, wait, I need 20 minutes. Or, you know what I mean? Like they couldn't possibly do that,
Yes. And so you were sort of saying in the beginning, it's not, the phrase isn't haunted, but paranormal things happen to you. Like I always happen to move into haunted houses. Is that the same with you?
No. However, when I go places, if it is haunted, it's going to pick up when I'm there. Like those spirits go, oh, you're a medium. you can see us. We're going to put on a show. That kind of thing happens. I'll say that if it happens every time you're moving, that means that they're actually in your energy.
That could be very true. Now, I think my place in LA wasn't so haunted. So I sort of had this. I was kind of thrown into Utica, New York, which is on the whole place, unbelievable history. You can't throw a stone without something. And then I moved into a place sight unseen. It was like, I'm just driving there. We're moving in. And yeah, the house has such a history. But basically, so what you're saying is maybe the lady next door isn't aware of them because she's not on that frequency, but I come in and then they're all in my field.
Absolutely. Yep. It can be so many things. It's sort of like, I'm always sensing spirits. My husband has he doesn't sense anything. So I think there's that. And then, they do act up when they know that you can, when they know you can see them, they'll make sure you do, like they make a point of it. Yeah.
You can see them, like visually see them, can't you?
Well, I see different things. So like with my third eye, I see detailed. With my eyeballs, I see like static, darkness, movement, that sort of thing. I shouldn't say. Upon waking, I see them three-dimensionally, but lucid.
Okay, that's an interesting skill. I had a friend that could do that. I really would. I know I would. I wonder if I would regret, because I would love to do that, because I do see things moving, and those are the easiest things just out of the corner of my eye. But those are things that I always, you can write them off. But if you are like me, you would say do more clearings, do more cleaning of your energy, correct?
Well, to be honest, that's the most you'll ever see. Like your eyeballs can only see so much. So what you're seeing now, it will probably never get stronger than that. Since your eyes are not where your clairvoyance is, you can strengthen your clairvoyance. You can't strengthen your eyes with seeing it. I will say that the stronger your clairvoyance gets, the more you see with your eyeballs, but there's still a limit. Does that make sense?
It does. That's very, very interesting. I really think you have just put in so much. I love how much work you've put into this, because I get like that when I got tarot, I was like, I'm putting everything into this, but I just curious, would you say 50% of what you learned is from other people and 50% is from your guides, or how would you say? Because I think you get a lot more from just your guides than most people.
I do. I would say that maybe at the beginning it was half and half. And I think it is the scale's starting to tip, where more of it's from my guides and my experiences and things that they tell me. I mean, even when I'm helping a client, sometimes they'll tell me something to tell them that I was totally unaware of. And I'm like, oh my God, let me write this down. I didn't know, so I'm still always learning. And yeah, it's definitely becoming where more of it is from them.
And a weird turn, when you do people call you about problems in their house?
So yes, a lot of times when we're doing a mentorship, they definitely ask me questions, and a lot of psychics and mediums are having strange phenomena that starts picking up around them. And so what I do is I look into what's going on, why it's happening, and sort of what needs remedied.
Do you see or know, like sometimes you might be like, that's an elemental spirit or it's not a human spirit? How do you differentiate those?
So what I do is that sometimes I see it clairvoyantly, which helps me, but things can look one way and actually be something different. So the way I double check is I ask my guides. I'll say, okay, what is this? And then they tell me clairaudiently what it is. And then basically I have a conversation with my guides, just like you and I are talking. And so like sometimes if you're working with me, you might hear me asking them questions, and then they give me responses just like a person would.
And you hear them in your head, right?
I hear them. Yes. They sound like me, which is what clairaudience sounds like. Generally, is it sounds like you talking to yourself.
I loved that tape when I watched you explain clairaudient, that it's not always a voice outside of your head or somebody else's voice whispering in your ear. It's just a conversation in your head.
It is. And so many people, they've had that happen and they think that's what's going to happen again. And that is definitely a phenomena that is not the divine. The divine are one with us, so they will always feel internal. That's why clairaudience is internal, clairvoyance is internal. It's all within you. When you're having experiences outside of you, it's usually something that is not of the divine. So I tell people, if you're hearing a voice talk to you, you need to say, you better get the hell out of my house, because it's a ghost. It's a ghost or something else. Now there's exceptions to that rule. Like if you're going to get run over by a car and it's not your time, your guides can be strong enough to pull you away or to say, hey, stop. But for regular communication, the divine will sound like you. They take on tones and personalities that don't sound like you, but they generally don't sound like this deep booming voice.
I very much like, I love when you said that also about too much, because I think you can get murky on if you think you're talking to your guides all the time. I do morning papers where I write in the morning, and I felt like that really opened up my communication. And sometimes it's funny, I'm kind of obsessed with creativity, because sometimes I wake up in the morning and they go, draw a picture. And I feel like what they're saying is that's how we're communicating with you today.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's great that you do that. I think more people should do that. It's a way to sort of just step back, and whatever comes to you, you can write down or draw. And yeah, absolutely.
Do you, this is a big left turn, but UFOs or aliens, believe, not believe, they interact with us, good, bad? What's your vibe on aliens?
Well, I definitely believe, and I've talked to them, and I've had to remove implants from people's bodies, not physically, I mean energetically. I mean, aliens, galactic beings, which are separate than that, absolutely exist. And a few years ago, a friend of mine who's also a psychic medium, we felt that soon enough the government was going to start buttering us up to this. And so to watch the last year that actually has been happening, where more videos are coming out and people in the government are going, yeah, I guess they kind of do exist, and having meetings about it. I tell my husband, because I like to be right, I'm like, I told you so. I told you this. So absolutely. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but absolutely, they're very real. And there's different levels of them, just like the ghosts. Some are assholes, some aren't.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I always think the government is, we're getting what the government knew 20 years ago. That's what I think.
Oh, yes. I mean, they're very aware. And I understand, you can't trust people. And even though I don't like the government hiding things, it's probably a good thing they didn't tell people like just one day, like, hey, just FYI, there are aliens. Like, I understand sort of them slowly going about it. But even the government's only scratched the surface. I mean, there's so much. When I ask questions, I don't communicate with aliens. I communicate with galactic beings because they're working in the light. Aliens necessarily aren't. But the information they have is they're so way, way, way beyond us.
Are they worried about the Earth right now? Or is it kind of like, well, you're going to be fine. People screw up all the time.
Generally, when I've talked to galactic beings or even archangels, they are usually not concerned like we're concerned. I think because they can sort of see energy that's coming up ahead, and they understand the purpose for what's occurring. They have a bird's eye view. I think that helps them not be worried. They also, we're very much purging a lot of stuff right now. The government is one of those things, and people's fears and belief systems are being broke down.
Yeah.
So I don't get a sense they're worried, and there's very much been a reason there's been no nuclear attack in a long time. And, our galactic helpers have a lot to do with that.
I feel that same way. There was a very interesting guy that had a near death experience, and he was one of the few that felt like he said he was talking to God. I don't know who he was talking to, but the being said to him, "You will never do that to my planet again." And I think that's true. I think there might be something small, but I don't think a nuclear war would happen.
No. And, as humans, we've been wiped out many times. And, that's why when they find these civilizations that they're like, gosh, all of this was so advanced. They didn't how'd they have this? We didn't have this even in the 1800s. And I'm like, yeah, that's because they wiped our ass out.
I agree.
About when we get out of control and we get too big for our britches, the earth goes, nope, nope, nope. And so the only thing we have to worry about is us. The earth will survive regardless of us, so hopefully we are learning lessons and don't get wiped out again. But even if we do, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right. I was thinking I think in the pyramids or something, they found a lighting system that was more advanced than ours.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was things that it's definitely the one time I channeled, a goddess from that time, and she said certain things that I thought, oh wow, that was so much different than what we think. Like we think of history as being, linear, and it's not, that's a whole other subject. It's trippy, you know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, there's a reason aliens are so advanced, and even though we're all on the same timeline, it's like they can jump around timelines. But now I'm getting really woo-woo.
No, I love it. You can keep going. And you, in one of your tapes, you were saying how Earth is probably the hardest reincarnation there is.
Yes, it absolutely is. It is. This sounds dramatic, but when people talk about hell, it's like, well, this is kind of hell. You don't have to worry about going to hell because you're already there. And there's also beautiful, amazing things here, and I'm happy to be alive. But it's a tough school. It's a school of hard knocks, and there's a reason we chose it, though. It's hard to sometimes understand why, but we've come back usually many, many times. Like for some reason, I think this is my 9th time, so I'm a glutton for punishment. But it's a very hard place, and our psychic abilities are very dampered by the density of Earth. And so even the best psychic medium in the world still is not at their full potential, nor will they ever be while they're on Earth.
Wow. When we use is I'm going to use that word, but it's not exactly what I mean. When we have say I'm studying mediumship and I want to get in tune with Anubis, or a lot of witches like to talk to Hecate or stuff like that. Are those energies, or do you see those as beings, and are you for that, or is it at an advanced level that people need to be careful? What is your feeling on that?
I feel as long as you're protected and, always checking in with your guides, or even having archangels with you and saying, hey, is it okay if I talk to so-and-so? They will tell you. They will tell you if they feel comfortable, or, hey, maybe you need extra protection. I find that this is a little unique to the person. And a lot of times it's maybe how much fear is in your system that might affect that. Because even a lot of people want to do mediumship, and it's not that they can't be taught, but it isn't necessarily good for their energy. And sometimes that is simply because there's a lot of fear attached to it that'll affect their connection. So anyway, I guess my point is, use your spirit guides. They're your bouncers, and they will tell you if it's okay for you to communicate with who.
And is it true that you are you maybe not as much guides, but you really should ask for the help?
Yes, absolutely. We have free will, and they are helping you regardless, but they can only so much. So it's very important to request things. And they like that because, by talking to your guides or requesting assistance, you're also acknowledging your divine being and that you want that connection. So they love that. They don't even care if you're asking for assistance finding a good parking spot. They're like, okay, we'll see what we can do, and some people think they can't ask simple things like that. And it's like, oh, absolutely. Help is help.
Yeah. I had two questions in there and they ran out of my head because I was listening. I have to write things down while I listen to people because I can't do two things at once. Right? So when people take this is the one. When people, I'm going to do that question last. People taking your class, this is just a whole bunch of general information. Well, it didn't look general from specifically the way you had it broken down, but let's just make sure people know the difference between if they want to take your class or if they want to get a private mentoring time with you. What would you say would be the difference, or which would be for whom?
So the class is a great beginner class to go over your 4 clairs and how to start practicing on your own. And what that class does is it really builds the psychic foundation of your psychic house, so to speak. A lot of people come to me and they took a mediumship class, but they don't even understand clairvoyance. And I'm like, yeah, no wonder you're having a hard time. So with this class, I'm like, let's strip you back and go to the beginning, and we're going to build the foundation, which are your 4 clairs. I give explanations in detail that I don't find a lot of people here in classes they've taken with other people. Like, I'm very specific. Mm-hmm. And then I have practices you can do that you go off and do on your own. That way, when you do meet with me, you're that far ahead and you have a lot of the basics understood. Now, one-on-one, the biggest difference with that is it's unique to what's going on with you. So I look at your energy. I look what's going on with you. Spirit tells me your skill sets in this life, psychically. Then I find out what's holding you back. They'll tell me where your blockages are, your fears. We then, depending on where you're at, we'll start a class of doing a connection together. And what I really like about this is that whatever my client's receiving, so am I. Mm-hmm. So they're telling me the same thing. That way I'm able to see if you're really connected and I'm able to validate you, which really helps. I can also see where you're blocking yourself. Spirit's so awesome that sometimes they'll tell my client a response or show them something clairvoyantly. And then like Archangel Michael will say, Ryan, I told her, but she's not telling you. She thinks she's wrong. So they'll totally, and I can say, hey, Karen, they said they gave it to you, but you're too scared to give it to me. And they're like, oh my God.
I bet that's more often than usual.
Yes. Absolutely. So it's very helpful, I found, and from what I've heard from people, for me to walk them through something. They always say to me, no teacher has ever done that. And that seemed to make the biggest difference.
Wow. And sometimes I wonder if when I'm because I have mediumship experiences, and sometimes during a reading I've had just a couple, and they were not that wasn't where I was going to begin with, but the spirit or whomever must have been such a strong spirit that I got it, and I can get almost everything. What the person looked like, they had a laugh, their nose was larger than you, all these yes, and then it hits a wall where I say, like, kind of like, what do you want me to know, or what's this piece of information? And that's where it stops. And then I wonder, am I doing mediumship or am I reading this person's mind? Does that make sense?
Sure. And I would say more than likely you're not reading their mind. Do you mean the deceased loved one or the person in front of you?
Deceased loved one. Say I was talking to a girl and her father came through, and I had just about everything, like, this is him. This is yes. He gave you this on your birthday. Yes.
So, I mean, we do telepathically receive information. A lot of the mediumship is telepathic, but also whether it's you telepathically picking up on it or receiving with your other clairs, it doesn't matter. If you're receiving, you're receiving, and you might find that you start tapping out either because you're putting too much pressure on yourself or your guides go, okay, you've reached your limit. So that's a good thing to find out is, do you have a limit? Because deceased loved ones, for me personally, they're very draining to my energy. So when I do mediumship, I don't actually usually tap into the deceased loved one. I bring a spirit guide in the middle of us, and my spirit guide tells me information about the deceased loved one. And then I don't get tapped out. So there's so many ways you can do a mediumship reading, and a lot of them are not being taught. Like you don't have to plug into the deceased loved one, and sometimes maybe you shouldn't.
Okay. That's great.
But people would say, oh, then that's not mediumship. And I'm like, well, I got all the same information you did. So is it?
I do love what you say about rules, because a big one that always just gets me just a little bit, and this is always someone who's very specifically trained by someone else, is all mediums are psychic, but all psychics are not mediums. And I always feel like, well, isn't it what you focus on?
Yeah, I don't like, think I understand maybe where that came from, but I don't like it because I haven't found it to really be true. What I think is that anyone can be taught mediumship. We all have psychic abilities. Everyone has psychic abilities. You're born with them. And then mediumship is also an ability, but it's sort of like singing. I don't sound like Mariah Carey. It doesn't mean I can't sing. Mm-hmm. So what I tell people is that with mediumship, you can be taught it, but it might not be in your wheelhouse. Like you might find you struggle or you're not very good at it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just might mean it's not for your energy. And that's something to find out, so it's like, does that make sense? It's like, you can totally do it. Everyone can do it. However, it might not be your cup of tea for many reasons, and that's okay.
Yes, you don't. Yes, I get that, because also what's very interesting is a lot of people will, this is just humankind. I will get a lot of negative comments about doing tarot from people who are either like, well, I don't need the cards anymore or anything like that. And I must have had a past life with this deck or Pamela Coleman Smith or something, because it's just, it's my thing. I like it at the moment. I don't have any intention of dumping it, but there does seem to, I think that's a human thing to want to category. I'm doing better than you are, so you can't do that. So yes, mediumship might not be the best thing, but it's not. I actually also like what you said, that psychic stuff is the foundation for it. That really clears it. I think that's what they're saying in a roundabout way, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, anyone should be able to learn to use their clairs and communicate with their angels and guides before they go on to other things. And like I had said earlier, a lot of people come to me and they're sort of either all over the place, or they've gone and taken a mediumship class, which is advanced. And it's like, wait a second, let's bring you back. If you can talk to a deceased loved one, you sure as hell should be able to talk to your spirit team. So let's have you do that. And then as you go forward, you'll naturally find what you're drawn to. It might be healing. It might be mediumship. A lot of people find out they have psychic abilities and they think, oh, I must be a medium. And I'm like, not necessarily. Right. Like, I can do mediumship. I am a medium, but I actually don't prefer it. But it took me doing it to figure out that my skill set is better with higher evolved beings. It doesn't make one better than the other, and I also really like teaching. When someone wants to be a medium, usually I ask them why, and you'd be surprised how much the ego is attached to the answer. So I tell just learn how to use your psychic abilities. And then as you go forward and you're practicing and playing and having fun, you will naturally feel very drawn to certain things. And then that's your sign for what sort of path to go down.
Wonderful. Ryan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Is there, would it be possible to tell what your seasons are? Like summer, you're closed, or winter, you work? How does that go?
Yeah, so on my website, I have when I'm open. So if you go to rockthedivine.com, under the mentoring page, it says that I take clients on from October to April. And right now, what I do is I take people on by the month. I'm hoping by fall, what I will have on my website, if I can figure it out, is a calendar. And you'll be able to just pay and pick a date, and away we go. But right now, I tell people to subscribe to my website, and then you're updated when I'm taking on more people. I'm actually finished now. I'm booked till April. Then I will be done for the summer. And in possibly even sometimes September, I start booking people again.
Great. That sounds perfect. That's about when I think, well, I'll actually be in Dubai. I was going to say my life slows down. Not that much. Wonderful. Ryan, I can't thank you enough. Everybody, Rock the Divine is the Instagram, the YouTube, the TikTok. Did I miss anything in there?
No, I think that's it. It's just always Rock the Divine.
Yes. And hold on for a second after. I think I can help you with the calendar thing. And that is it. Thank you, Ryan. Anything in closing or just...
No, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. And everybody, join the Patreon /Rontowski. I'm trying to grow that. It's my favorite thing. Learn some tarot, some psychic stuff, some guests, some extra podcasts. If you just want podcasts, that is a level. Check out the spiritual protection class with Tommy and everybody. Thanks to Mike at Una Rising Media. Everybody have a great day. Paranormal Care.